world is at a critical point and war is looming. As geopolitical tension between major world powers continues to thicken uncontrollably, the United States is preparing its extremely destructive and powerful $27 billion aircraft carrier for battle. This carrier boasts advanced features and capabilities that has the whole world terrified. Its mere presence as it dominates the waters strikes fear in the heart of its adversaries, and now the U.S. is about to unleash its sheer power again. What is this aircraft carrier that strikes terror in the world? Is it powerful enough to quiet the troubled waters and restore the peaceful balance in the world? Join us as we explore the shocking features of the United States' new $27 billion aircraft carrier that has the whole world terrified. In 1942, the United States experienced a massive setback as 4 fleet aircraft carriers, 1 light fleet aircraft carrier, and 6 escort aircraft carriers were damaged and sunk by Japanese dive bombers. This was a defining point for the United States Navy, and as a result of this, the United States invested even more resources into building aircraft carriers that are indestructible and extremely powerful. One of these technological advanced carriers that stands out for not only being the largest ever built, but the most technologically sophisticated and powerful is the USS Gerald R. Ford, the beast that has struck fear in the heart of the United States rivals. With the recent conflicts in the world, the prolonged war between Russia and Ukraine, the tension between Iran and Israel, and the never-ending rivalry between the United States, Russia, and China, the USS Gerald could not have been built in a more interesting period. With the aim to replace the outdated Nimitz class, an aircraft carrier that was developed in 1968 and has been in active service for over 50 years, the USS Gerald, also known as CVN-78, has been designed with the most advanced technologies and instruments to provide the Navy with strategic dominance, one that its rivals cannot boast about or even try to counter. However, China and Russia have undoubtedly made major headway in the development of advanced aircraft carriers as well, with China's Type 003 and Russia's Kuznetsov, but just as you imagine, theirs don't even come close to the level of the CVN-78. The USS Gerald R. Ford is the first of 10 new aircraft carriers that are being built to replace the older Nimitz-class carriers, which do not have the latest technology for naval warfare or even advanced threats. The ships in this class include, of course, the USS Gerald R. Ford, or CVN-78, which was commissioned in July 2017, the USS John F. Kennedy, or CVN-79, which is set to be commissioned in 2025, and the USS Enterprise, or CVN-80, which is scheduled for 2028, the USS Doris Miller, or CVN-81, planned for 2032, and the CVN-82, expected in 2036. So far, 5 out of the 10 planned Gerald R. Ford class carriers have been announced. The lead ship of her class and is named after the 38th President of the United States, Gerald Ford, whose Second World War naval service included combat duty aboard the light aircraft carrier Monterey in the Pacific Theater. The rules for naming United States Navy ships were set by Congress as early as 1862. According to Title 13, Section 1531 of the United States Code from that year, the Secretary of the Navy, under the President's direction, names the ships. First-class sailing vessels are named after states, second class are named after rivers, third class are named after major cities and towns, while the fourth class are named as the current president decides. President Theodore Roosevelt made further clarifications in 1907. If a ship changes type, like a destroyer becoming a mine layer, it keeps its original name. This explains how the Gerald got its unique name. The USS Gerald R. Ford is the biggest aircraft carrier and warship ever built. It has advanced features like electromagnetic catapults, modern weapons elevators, flight decks, nuclear power, and propulsion systems controlled by software. It also needs fewer crew members because of its higher automation. These new carriers have 2 new nuclear plants that produce up to 3 times more electricity than the older ones. This power can support an entire floating city, including food services, medical facilities, waste management, and desalination plants. Just imagine how really advanced this cargo ship is. It is definitely a technological marvel. This powerful ship is 333 meters long, and it can travel at 30 nautical miles per hour. It is 40.8 meters wide with a flight deck width of 70-80 meters, weighs 100,000 tons, can launch 160 flights per day, and is propelled by 30-ton bronze propellers. The CVN-78 and other ships in the fleet of the Gerald R. Ford class of aircraft carriers has 23 new and upgraded systems compared to its predecessor, the Nimitz class. Let's take a look at a few of the systems running CVN-78. This large aircraft carrier is equipped with dual-band radar, which combines the capabilities of X-band and S-band phased arrays. This dual band gives the aircraft carrier better capabilities for a range of mission-critical environments. Meanwhile, its open architecture software enables more autonomy with very minimal human intervention. This gives it an advantage over the previously developed aircraft carrier. The radar system has 6 faces, 3 for tracking low-flying objects and 3 for finding targets in any weather. It's the first system to use 2 frequencies controlled by one manager. It doesn't have moving parts, so it needs less maintenance. The system includes 3 arrays above decks and processing units below. It's powered by a system called CAPS and cooled by Cactus. A similar radar, EASR, will replace it on some ships, costing less per unit. Let's go into details about the launch systems. The electromagnetic aircraft launch system uses an electric motor to better control acceleration. This allows for slower speeds when launching drones and provides more flexibility with wind and conditions during takeoff. EMALS also reduces stress on both planes and pilots, making successful flights more likely. When it comes to armaments in defending itself, the USS Gerald is equipped with the most lethal of them all. The ship has surface-to-air missiles, including 2 MK-29 launchers with 8 Evolved Sea Sparrow missiles each, and 2 Mk-49 launchers with 21 rolling airframe missiles each. Sea Sparrow is a short-range missile capable of making flight corrections using radar guidance. Comprising a cylindrical body with 4 mid-body wings and 4 tail fins, it provides an ideal self-defense mechanism for ships against air and surface threats, including high-speed and low-altitude anti-ship cruise missiles. It also has guns, 3 Phalanx CIWs, 4 25mm machine gun systems, and 4 50 caliber machine guns. Advanced arresting gear is one of the newest systems developed for the CVN-21 aircraft carrier program. It is a modular system composed of energy absorbers, power conditioning equipment, and a digital control system, working together to require less maintenance and manpower to run aircraft carriers. This new advanced arresting gear system uses electromagnets instead of hydraulics to slow and stop landing aircraft. While the old hydraulic system has worked well for over 50 years, it can't capture unmanned aerial vehicles without damaging them because they are not heavy enough to activate the hydraulic piston used for manned planes. Also, the AAG system uses a turbo-electric engine to control energy absorption, making the process smoother and reducing stress on the aircraft. Although the AAG system looks the same from the flight deck, it is more flexible, safe, reliable, and requires less maintenance and fewer crew members. The new aircraft carriers feature a new nuclear reactor design, the A1B reactor for greater power generation. It is smaller, simpler, needs fewer crew members, and is much more powerful than the Nimitz-class A4W reactor. Each Gerald R. Ford class carrier will have 2 reactors, providing at least 25% more power than the 2 reactors on a Nimitz-class carrier. The amount of thermal power converted to electricity will be tripled. The propulsion and power systems on Nimitz-class carriers were designed in the 1960s when less electrical power was needed. However, the new technologies added to these ships have increased the demand for electricity, and this leaves a little margin for additional power needs. Also, the Gerald R. Ford class ships convert steam into power using 4 main turbine generators, which provide electricity for major systems and the new electromagnetic catapults. They use steam turbines for propulsion. The increased power output is crucial for the integrated warfare system, and engineers design the ships to incorporate future technological advances. The Navy expects these carriers to serve until 2105, so they must accommodate new technologies over the years. Currently, only half of the electric power capacity is used, leaving the other half available for future systems. They have stealth features to reduce their radar visibility. Additionally, they can carry up to 90 aircraft, including models such as the Boeing F/A-18EF Super Hornet, Boeing EA-18H Growler, Grumman C-2 Greyhound, Northrop Grumman E-2 Hawkeye, Lockheed Martin F-35C, Lightning II, Sikorsky SH-60 Seahawk helicopters, and unmanned combat aerial vehicles. The most noticeable difference from earlier supercarriers is that the island is located further back. The Gerald R. Ford-class carriers will cost less over their lifetime, partly because they need fewer crew members. These ships are designed to handle 160 flights per day for over 30 days, with a maximum of 270 flights per day. However, Michael Gilmore, the director of operational testing, has said these expectations are unrealistic and that flight rates similar to the Nimitz class would be acceptable. In May 4, 2023, the USS Gerald R. Ford arrived in Oslo for the first time on Wednesday. It is a demonstration of NATO's strength amid tension with Russia over Ukraine. The ship will train with the Norwegian military along the coast in the coming days. Johnny Carlson from Norway's military said the visit shows the strong bond between the US and Norway and the importance of working together for defense. Now this brings Russia's aircraft carrier into view. The Admiral Flota Sovetskogo Soyuza Kuznetsov, also known as Admiral of the Fleet of the Soviet Union Kuznetsov, is a big warship for planes, like a flying base leading the Russian Navy. It was made in Ukraine by the Black Sea Shipyard and finished in 1995. It had different names before, like Riga and Leonid Brezhnev, but it's now named after a famous Russian admiral, Nikolai Gerasimovich Kuznetsov. This ship, named after Nikolai Kuznetsov, was ordered in 1981 and built by Nikolaev South. Its construction started in 1982 and finished in 1985. It was fully ready for action in 1998. Currently, it's being repaired and upgraded. This Russian ship is a big aircraft carrier with a displacement of 58,000 tons when fully loaded. It is also about 3.05 meters long and 72 meters wide. Unlike the USS Gerald, it is powered by steam turbines and has a speed of 29 knots. It can also carry a variety of aircraft, including Su-33, MiG-29K, and helicopters like Ka-27 and Ka-31. To launch planes, Admiral Kuznetsov has a ski jump at the front of its deck. So when planes take off, they speed up towards and go up the ski jump using extra power. This makes the plane leave the deck at a higher angle and height compared to a carrier with a flat deck and catapults. Ski jump takeoffs are easier on pilots because they accelerate less. But planes need to be designed not to stall at speeds of 120 to 140 kilometers per hour during takeoff. The Admiral Kuznetsov-class ships have a different purpose compared to the carriers in the United States Navy. Instead of just carrying planes, they're designed as heavy aircraft-carrying cruisers to help and protect submarines, surface ships, and aircraft armed with missiles for the Russian Navy. This cargo ship mainly uses the Su-33 plane. It's versatile, doing jobs like guarding the sky, defending the fleet, and helping with air attacks. It can even help in battles by shooting at targets directly or doing other tasks like spying and putting down sea mines. The carrier also has Ka-27 and Ka-275 helicopters for finding and fighting submarines, rescuing people, and moving small things around. That's not all. Admiral Kuznetsov can act like a cruiser because it carries 12 long-range anti-ship missiles called P-700 Granite, also known as Shipwreck. This is why it's called a heavy aircraft carrying missile cruiser in Russian. Unlike many Western ships that use gas or nuclear power, this ship runs on conventional fuel called mazut. This type of fuel can produce thick black smoke, which can be seen from far away. Russian naval officials suggest that not heating the mazut properly before it enters the engine might be causing the heavy smoke. Since 2018, this ship has been undergoing repairs and hasn't been in service. The repair work has faced problems like accidents, money misuse, and other setbacks. After a floating dry dock sank in 2018, the ship was moved to a yard in Sevmorput. Then in 2019, there was a big fire that killed one worker and injured others. In 2022, the ship was moved to another dry dock in Murmansk, where it stayed until 2023. They hope to finish repairs and return the ship to the Russian Navy in 2024. but it might be delayed to 2025 if there are more problems during the overhaul. Admiral Kuznetsov, being called an aircraft-carrying cruiser, is important because it lets the ship go through the Turkish Straits, according to the Montreux Convention. This agreement mentioned that ships heavier than 15,000 tons, like regular aircraft carriers, can't pass through. But since Admiral Kuznetsov is labeled as a cruiser and was made in Ukraine, it could have been stuck in the Black Sea if Turkey said no to going into the Mediterranean Sea. Luckily, Turkey allowed it to pass, and none of the countries following the convention complained about its classification as an aircraft-carrying cruiser. While the U.S. Navy is getting closer to finishing its second Gerald R. Ford-class aircraft carrier, Russia still relies on its mostly inactive Admiral Kuznetsov for naval strength. Despite the former Soviet Union's strong military and progress during the Cold War, they never managed to finish strong aircraft carriers. When the USSR fell in 1991, their dreams of having powerful carriers fell apart. Because of bad planning and timing, Russia only has one aircraft carrier in its fleet, and unfortunately, Admiral Kuznetsov hasn't lived up to expectations. After Peter the Great died in the early 1700s, the Russian Navy became weaker. Only 54 ships were built between 1726 and 1730. But in the late 1700s, Russia improved its navy, especially in the Black Sea. By the early 1800s, Russia's navy became the second strongest in the world after the UK. However, after losing many ships in the Russo-Japanese War, Russia's naval power declined. To fix this, Tsar Nicholas II started a big program to build more ships. When World War I began, Russia had a bigger navy than its enemies in the Central Powers. The Russian Navy had a rough time ahead. During the Russian Civil War, which led to the rise of the Soviet Union, Russia's naval fleet became weak. But when the Bolsheviks took over, they wanted to make the Navy strong again. Even though the Soviet Union tried hard to build advanced battleships, destroyers, and cruisers around World War I, the US, Japan, and Britain focused on building aircraft carriers instead. The Soviets missed the chance to do the same. It wasn't until the late 1930s, during one of Stalin's plans, that the Soviets decided to prioritize aircraft carriers. But when the Second World War started, plans for carriers were put on hold. Over the years, there were more plans for carrier classes, but they never happened because of changes in the country's leadership. By the mid-1980s, the Soviet Union finally succeeded in making its own aircraft carrier. Admiral Flota Sovetskoho Soyuza Kuznetsov was built at Chernomorsky shipyard. Originally named Riga, then Leonid Brezhnev, Tbilisi, and finally Kuznetsov, it was meant to lead a group of carriers called the Admiral Kuznetsov class. But when the Soviet Union fell, its sister ship, Varyag, wasn't finished. So Kuznetsov became the only carrier for the new Russian Federation, serving as its main ship. Kuznetsov can carry helicopters and fighters like Sukhoi Su-33 and MiG-29. It is also armed with long-range anti-ship missiles. On paper, Kuznetsov weighs about 60,000 tons and can go over 30 knots. It's also equipped for fighting submarines. But Kuznetsov has had many problems over the years. It has been in dry dock for most of the past decade. During its first deployment to help in the Syrian civil war in 2016, it lost 2 aircraft due to faulty equipment. Since then, it hasn't been able to launch or land planes properly. It's also had other incidents on board, like fires and accidents. Even if Kuznetsov sails again as Russia's main ship, it can never be as good as other countries as carriers. With this reality, Russia has recognized the need for a new carrier that would be formidable against modern threats. And now they are working on a new project, the Project 23,000E. This project, also known as Storm, is a plan for a big aircraft carrier made by the Krylov State Research Center for the Russian Navy. The cost of making it to sell to other countries is over $5.5 billion. It was expected to take about 10 years to develop, but as of 2020, it hadn't been approved yet. Because it would cost a lot of money, it's not clear if it will be a priority compared to other things the Russian Navy wants to do. The Storm class, as it is called, would be bigger than previous Russian carriers, weighing about 90,000 to 100,000 tons. This proposed aircraft carrier would be about 330 meters long and 40 meters wide. It would also be powered by a nuclear reactor and have 4 propellers, letting it go about 25 to 30 knots. It would carry up to 100 aircraft, including Su-57 and MiG-29K planes, and would also have a special deck for launching planes, with 2 ski jump ramps and 2 electromagnetic catapults. It would also have anti-aircraft systems for defense. This proposed aircraft carrier that Russia is planning to build might finally be a worthy competition for the USS Gerald Ford. But till then, the United States Navy remains the most powerful. Thanks for watching. While you are still here, click on the link on your screen to check out another of our videos. See you there.